never rests.
Counting careless in the sky. What a thrilling time to be alive.
What is up, everybody? It's Tuesday morning. This is the Georgia Show. I'm Jake Rowe. He's Rusty Mansell. We are DawgsHQ. We are a week away from Georgia spring practice. It's here that quickly. Georgia's going to get it kicked off next Tuesday. They'll have pro day next Wednesday. We're going to talk about both of those things, and we're also going to get into the fact that Rusty recruiting is about to pick right back up with some visits and other stuff going on. What's going on with you, man?
Well, number one, Uncle Glenn Hartley, I haven't had any Bojangles. I hadn't had Bojangles in a while. Don't tell them. So I had to cut that out a little bit. So trying to cut back. Number two, I don't sound great. Sinuses, but allergies. Other than that, I'm okay. I just don't sound great. And number three, most importantly, Jake, breaking news, I have a new mic on the way. So we're going to get this thing dialed in. They kill me on YouTube over the mic. All our people here on the live show are a lot nicer to me, but I get killed on YouTube. So been dealing with mic issues and talked to my man Jack Terry in the home office last week in Nashville, and Jack hooked me up, said this is what you need and this is what we'll all use. So I'll have a new mic. So y'all be good. DGD, don't be snitching on me now. Don't snitch. I know you up there. I know you up there close to that home office at Charlotte Bojangles. Don't snitch on me.
Yeah, don't. I mean, listen, man, Rusty.
I'll be back. I'm just having to take the winter off.
Reputations are important, man. Reputations are important, and you know you're tied to that. You know you're tied to it, and I also hear that when the time is right, the gravy boat might start hearing from you a little bit up there in Rome.
Man, the gravy boat closed down.
Oh no way!
Don't even get me started on that.
Oh man, maybe.
A drive-through called the Gravy Boat. Do you think that bologna biscuit there wouldn't like heaven?
Oh man, I tell you what. I mean, I want to get too much into it, but my go-to now. I haven't had a breakfast sandwich in a while either. I'm not near as successful at the weight loss thing as you are at this point. But man, if I can slide on up to Stripling's there in Bogart and get me a smoked pork chop, egg and cheese biscuit,
heaven. You get a pair of jumper cables with it. There's nothing like it.
Hey, this pretty lean piece of meat. You know, it's not too bad. But the biscuit's probably the worst thing about it, to be honest with you.
Stripling's is strong. Yeah, everything
is so good. Stripling's is so good. But hey, so is Georgia football. Georgia football is going to be really good this year, and it's going to start here with spring practice. And Rusty, man, there's so much to talk about. There's so much to get into. There's new positions. There's new starters. There's new guys trying to make a move a little bit. As of right now, 1 week out, if you could say, all right, I'm going to know about this one thing, and I'm going to have intimate knowledge of how this is going to play out all throughout spring practice. You just had to pick one thing, one position battle, one element of the team. What would be that one thing?
That I would get the choice of knowing?
Get the choice of knowing everything about it.
It's tough between wide receivers and secondary. There's some spots there, some new guys. I will go with wide receiver just because they brought in so many new guys. And when you lose two players like Brock Bowers and Ladd McConkey, that opens up a lot of touches. And I think there's a lot of opportunity for a lot of new people. Even people that are returning, the Arian Smiths and Dylan Bells and, everyone else. But when you lose two guys like that who potentially could be NFL first rounders, there's a lot of opportunity there. There's a lot of targets there. And I just think the wide receiver position is one I'm really curious with the portal additions and the guys. And again, we say it a lot, and you've talked about it. I've talked about it. The comments have talked about it. What kind of step can Arian Smith take? Because Arian Smith has potential to be different than anybody else if he can just get this thing more consistent and stay healthy.
And we see it all the time. And I'm not necessarily blaming folks. Me personally, I have a hard time understanding like exactly why you would get there is, a lot of folks are kind of done following that whole Arian Smith thing and whether or not he's going to make it. And if he hadn't done it by now, he's not going to do it. Yeah. Guys, I'll tell you this, man. if there's anything that I've learned covering Georgia football with Kirby Smart there is like, if you're suiting up, if you're still on the football team, it's really never too late. Like
Yeah.
so many guys have made something out of their careers very late in their careers. And a lot of guys, Rusty, a lot of guys with far less talent than Arian Smith has. And let's not forget Arian Smith has basically been the difference for Georgia in a big game already and has a lot of big catches in big games.
Yeah, and you look at the last game, Georgia, try to get him some touches, try to use him some things. I think if I'm Mike Bobo, I try to give him some confidence going into the offseason. You saw Arian Smith and Dylan Bell really become a part of the offense and the targets. The contested catches Dylan Bell made against Florida State, there were guys hanging all over him, and he still made catches, and that is very promising. And, I don't know that you should be giving up on Arian Smith. I think if we were able to sit down with Arian Smith, he would tell you, man, I've had some inconsistencies, had a few health issues, but when I'm good to go, I'm as good as anybody. And you can ask Ohio State about a couple of those catches and a couple of those things. And, the people talk about the Ohio State touchdown, and that wasn't a busted coverage. That was the dude understanding how fast Arian Smith was. And you watch the corner when he tries to open his hips in transition, he falls down because he knows I better get my ass in gear or this guy's going to be up the field on me. And he did, and the guy fell down. So that wasn't an accident. That was because Arian Smith is a world-class speed, and that DB twisted himself up, couldn't open his hips, and tripped over himself thinking I better go. And, that was a created touchdown by Arian Smith being able to use his speed. So, we can talk a lot about him, but I think the wide receiver, London Humphreys, all these guys they brought in, just very excited to see what they do there. Here's one thing I'll mention DB wise. You've said it and I've said it a million times. In a Kirby Smart / Glenn Schumann defense, the two middle guys, the inside backers and the two safeties have to make all the calls. So they have to be very experienced guys. So, you start talking about who's going to play opposite of Malachi and those types of things. It's going to have to be somebody that's going to have to either, catch on really quick, or it's going to be an experienced guy. You look at Smile Munden, CJ Allen, Raylan Wilson, I almost said Channing Tindall, Jalen Walker. All those guys have played a lot of football already, so the calls will be there from the inside linebacker group. But I'm interested in how they do the back end and who's going to be there, because the two safeties and the two inside backers at Georgia make the calls.
Yeah, 100%. And kind of getting back to, the original question. I love those, those two answers are great, receiver, defensive back. I'm looking at the outside linebacker room because I want to see how does this transition or how does this kind of role change for Michael Williams work? Where's Damon Wilson in terms of like his growth and his, is he up to 240, 235, 240, 245 like he wants to be? What are we seeing out of Sam Mpemba?
Yep.
And I guess if you just brought go ahead.
Did you see the video of Damon Wilson yesterday working out?
I did not know.
Oh man, there's a social media post of him. Go watch that and him running drills yesterday. You want to talk about somebody that can bend at the ankles? You'll appreciate that one. He looks 240 to me, 245.
I'll tell you another thing too about David Wilson. I don't know if I've had a chance to say this, but I interviewed him after the Orange Bowl in a locker room where Georgia was not very accepting of us interviewing the youngsters after the Orange Bowl. We had some support staffers coming and grabbing the kids before we could really talk to them, which is what it is. I don't care. I tell you, sometimes you talk to a kid and you're like, that kid gets it, and he's one of those. Like he seemed to really understand it and to get it. The fact that he said, hey, they're going to have to come drag me away from Georgia. I love this place. This is where I want to be. And also the understanding that like he wasn't ready in year one to play a ton of snaps and to do a bunch of things. And he knew he had to do some stuff to get ready. I want to see where Sam Mpemba is in his development, because a lot of times some time off, some time out of practice, he probably spent a lot of time with the scout team this past season. How is it now? I know Gabe Harris plays DN, but where's Gabe Harris physically? I mean, you've reported on it. I've reported on it. up there around 255. I'm sure they want to get him to 260, 265 pounds. I think that having a difference maker at that spot kind of is a big deal. Kind of reminds me a little bit of John Ledbetter, a little bit in that kind of that same mold coming out of high school. So, just the edge and outside linebacker positions in general. Ty Ingram Dawkins, throw him in there as well. Joseph Jonah Ajonye in his first spring with the team. I mean, there's a lot of talent in that group, and it's and a lot more of it is coming of age. They're not as young as they were this time last year at a lot of those positions.
I like that one. Chaz Chambliss is going to be a staple there, and that's just a veteran and a guy that's one of the team leaders. And but you look at Damon Wilson. That's a great point on Michael, because we know kind of what we've heard and talked to some people. I mean, that is something that he wanted to do. It's something Georgia said he was going to do, and get him stand up and some pass rush stuff like that. So, that room is deep for a reason. And you look at the NFL, it's about the quarterback, it's about the left tackle, and it's about the edge guys. And wide receiver obviously is starting to evolve very heavily, but typically the three guys that the NFL covet the most are those three positions. And Georgia's got a room, that outside linebacker room right now. They're trying to make a dent, and I think they got some young guys going to take a step.
For sure. And I was talking to a scout at the combine about, that kind of Michael's move. And I was like, listen, I don't know if he's going to be a full-time jack or how they're going to treat it. But I said, but I do think they're going to, put him on the weak side a little bit more and allow him to kind of stand up and to put his hand in the ground and play outside technique. I guarantee you his snap count of playing inside the tight end and inside the tackle is going to go down this year. I feel confident in that. And he brought up, he said, well, who's going to take snaps from him? And I said, well, Chaz Chambliss is a guy they'll use on rundowns. And he said, oh, yeah, he's the DHH. And I said, who is that? And he said, designated hammerhead. So he said, that's the guy they put in there, and they just say, go blow up blocks. They pull at you if you squeeze the tackle, you do all those things. And they're going to have different roles for different guys. And listen, I think Damon Wilson's going to play a lot of ball. I think, Jalen Walker is going to continue to come in on third down. That Georgia found a little something there late in the season with Jalen Walker on one edge of the line of scrimmage and Damon Wilson on the other one.
Yep.
And they were able to get after the quarterback a little bit. And I think you go with that. You put Michael over a tackle or over a guard on third down and work that mismatch. And Warren Brinson or if Jordan Hall's ready, Christian Miller, you've got some options there on the interior too. And I really think this could be a very good Georgia pass rush team in general.
Better this year, I do believe. You believe better.
One of the better ones Kirby's had, I think.
Yeah, to get more experience there and to get these young guys ready to go. Because here's the deal: you recruit a Damon Wilson and Pemba, those guys nowadays. You just say, look, he's a 3-year guy. You know what I mean? Like he's. Kids don't have to play all 3 years, but their mindset is, okay, I learned, I set out, now it's time to go. Now it's time to go that second year. So I'm excited about that. That's a great pick there, Jake. I think the outside linebacker room is another one. We could go every position, running back. We could go right tackle. We could do all those things. But what I found ironic talking to some scouts before and sitting with some guys, and they may do a little bit more because it's been a couple of years, but I wouldn't imagine. They don't really dig into players until they are either draft eligible or they announce they're coming out. They don't they'll go watch a game and make a note, but they're not digging into Georgia tape, watching freshman and sophomore. They're not. I remember sitting with the head scout of an NFL team, and we were watching some tape, and because I wanted to learn a little bit about him, I said, listen, can you just show me how you evaluate offensive linemen? So we watched the tape, and I started talking about guys, and he goes, who is that? And I was like, that's a freshman All-American. He goes, oh, we're not worried about him for 2 years. And I was thinking, damn, but that's really truthfully.
They talk about him in they talk about him numbers. You're talking about
yeah. They don't dig into it because they have to do so much work into the draft class and guys that are eligible and background checks and all that stuff. They don't even worry about it until somebody's there. I mean, obviously they would know, a young quarterback and because they get out, but they don't dig into those guys, which I was really surprised. But it makes sense.
Hey, let's do this for Caleb Huff real quick because I like this little exercise here. Can you go over who you think will be 11 on the field on offense and on 1st and 10 opening drive? Well, that's tough because you don't really know the personnel package Georgia's going to be in. But let's just say 3 wide. All right.
Okay.
I mean, I think we understand probably Ra Thomas, Dylan Bell, and Dominic Lovett.
I'll go there.
You're looking at tight end, probably Oscar Delp, even though Ben Urasic, I think, is going to be a factor. I think Delp is definitely going to have a leg up on everybody else. And Rusty, again, I'm going to do this. You just disagree with me if you've got one. Ernest Green, left tackle. Dylan Fairchild, left guard. Jared Wilson, center. Tate Ratledge at right guard. And while I think Monroe Freeling is going to end up being Georgia's primary right tackle on the season, game 1, 1st and 10, Xavier Truss takes the first snap at right tackle, in my opinion.
Yeah, and what I'll say too on tackle is, if you notice, Georgia's if they're able, and I don't know if this was Kirby Smart's, Mike Bobo's, whatever, they play 3 tackles.
Yeah. Well, really, that's something that really became a factor with Stacey Searles.
Yes.
When Searles came in, that they ramped that up for whatever reason. I think it had more to do with the fact that, you had 3 really good tackles. Like you had 3 really good tackles, and Amarius Mims. I mean, it started with Mims, McClendon, and Jones. Really,
yes.
When it really, and then they ramped it up again last year. And I think Monroe Freeling is going to end up being Georgia's primary right tackle in 2024, but I think Xavier Truss gets that first start. Running back, I mean, Trevor Etienne.
No doubt. I mean, they're gonna rotate so many. I mean, a question like that, Caleb, I don't know if I've seen Caleb's name on here, but sorry if you've been here, but you might have changed your profile picture, but thank you for that question. It's a very subjective question because your personnel package and those types of things. What I like to say is who's going to be in that top about 16. You know what I mean? Because the tight end from Stanford is going to play a huge role. You're going to have these guys, these running backs, going to play multiples. Lawson Lucky is going. It's Arian Smith's going to be a part of the offense. I mean, the first 11. Yeah, I feel like Jake hit it right there, and I would go with him, barring any kind of injuries or anything like that. But they're pretty deep there, and there's going to be Michael Morris is going to play a lot of guard, and my interest would be who's going to be the backup left tackle coming out of spring, those types of things. I'm going to bring a name to the board here in probably a day or so that's having a really good offseason. I will say this. I mentioned it on the DawgsHQ dog walk yesterday, and a little nugget for you. Someone that trains Daniel Calhoun in the offseason when he's home hit me up this week and said, "Hey, man, Daniel's home. Dude's at 3:30. So that means from December, they played in the state championship in mid to late December at Walton until 3-5 or 3-4. So lost 35 pounds. And you're talking about if that dude at 3:30 is going to be a problem to deal with. I mean, that's all he needed to do was lose about 35 pounds. He's done that before spring practice. That's damn good news for Georgia because he's a guy that a lot of people think probably ends up at guard. Don't write him off at right tackle down the line. I mean,
you never know, man. But those jumbo giant men who are have a hard time keeping it in check in high school, 360, 370. They lose 30, 40 pounds. You don't know what they can become. You just
great work ethic, and listen, we're not going to talk about how it ended for him, but we could talk about the years at Georgia. And Isaiah Wilson came to Georgia like 390. And, he was playing at like a year later, he was playing like 340 and started right tackle for them. So, wound up being a first rounder regardless of how it ended for him. But his production at Georgia and how he transformed his body, I was there watching him. That's back when you could go to workouts. I remember watching this guy work out, and that's one of the biggest human beings I've ever seen. He was in high school, but I'll tell you what, man, it was one of those June mornings in Athens, and that humidity was just right. My man did about 10, 12 reps, and that was about all he had in him. I mean, the sweat was pouring off my guy, man.
Yeah, and I mean, again, and listen, I reported a little while back that, I spoke with someone who said, and I specifically asked about those O linemen because all of them they brought in this year. It's a big class. Everybody talked about it. all of them needed to cut some weight. And I was told that at that time that to varying degrees, all of them had cut weight, which is always good news. Another piece of good news we got today, we got a new partner, myperfectfranchise.net. Listen, are you displaced corporate executive or you want to put a career in your own hands? That's the question you need to ask yourself. Are you an experienced entrepreneur and you want to, diversify, and kind of, figure something else out, get something else going? Well, Andy Ludicky and myperfectfranchise.net can help you out. Andy's a huge college sports fan and franchise veteran, having owned multiple franchises and multiple businesses. Using his expertise, he helps others find the American dream through a very thorough consultation and evaluation process. Call Andy, put your life and career in your own hands, and best of all, his services are 100% free to you. Reach out now. Go ahead and do it. See, just check it out and see what's going on. Listen, I've been there before. I was in a classroom at one point, and I had to get out. And luckily, I was able to find my way into this business. But if you've got that entrepreneurial spirit, you check it out. What do you got to lose? Find your perfect franchise at myperfectfranchise.net. And the guy you need to speak to, Andy Ludicky, and talk with him, and I'm sure he can get you sorted out. And we definitely appreciate him as our new partner. He'll be with us for a while.
I like it.
We're excited about him. We're excited about it a lot. All right, let's move on to recruiting, Rusty. And this is not recruiting. I got the wrong banner up. Georgia spring practice is on deck. I'll get there in a minute. Recruiting's about to pick up.
Yep.
Tell us how. What's going on?
Well, so the quiet, what's called the quiet period. What is a quiet period? That means that you can be on campus.
We don't have those in my house. I know that.
There's
when
no
the
quiet.
Kids get home, there ain't no quiet periods in the row household.
No. Quiet period in the recruiting world is between yesterday, March 4th, and I believe April 14th. That means you can be on campus. That means you can be face-to-face with coaches on campus. That means if you're a 2025, coaches can call you and they can text you. Only the 2025. No off-campus contact. They can't be, Kirby Smart can't go to, Juan Gaston's high school and watch him work out like he did in January, watch him play basketball, those type of things. That's over with for a while. The assistant coaches will be able to come back out. Here's the big change, and I know that support staffs are just loving this. Prospects probably not, but it needed to be changed, man. No more photo shoots on campus unless you're on an official visit. And here, we don't have to get too deep in this. I'm gonna get 1 minute with this, and we'll get off this subject. Here's what would happen. Jake Rowe was a 5-star prospect, and Jake Rowe would come up to Georgia, and Jake Rowe would get the red carpet treatment. And he was a sophomore in high school, and he would be on campus, and they would dress him out. Well, Jake Rowe would bring 9 of his teammates. And what are you going to do? You're going to dress all 9 guys out, and they're going to take pictures, and it's going to take time. And I've heard stories of prospects bringing 30 people with them, and they want all the people dressed out. It got crazy. So great rule change, not many, but damn, great rule change by the NCAA to say only seniors or upcoming seniors on an official visit will get the photo shoots and the uniforms now. And I think that's going to be great. I think that's a great rule, make more visits more efficient. And you don't have to tie up, 1,000 people trying to get Rusty Mansell out of a damn uniform and put him in a jersey and shoulder pads and everything else when you ain't got no prayer playing there anyway. So good rule. That changes now. So the only time you'll see those photo shoots are for the official visits.
Tell you what, you know how those you've seen how those O-line jerseys fit. Brother, there ain't no doubt in my mind that some of those grown men they've had on campus is taking in 20, 30 minutes to get one of those dudes out of those
grease them things on.
Yes, sir, buddy. No, 100%. I actually learned here recently, apropos to nothing, about how they put the Velcro in the NFL, how they put the Velcro on the inside of the showing the shoulder pads so that the jersey grabs to the Velcro and all that stuff. Like I always wondered why that suctioned to the jersey like that. And I saw somebody explaining that. That was pretty interesting. All right. So Rusty, visitors, obviously we don't want to give all of them away. Who are a couple of guys that you're interested to see kind of whether or not they make it to campus or what they're saying coming out of the visits here in the next couple, 2 or 3 weeks?
Well, so Georgia, you're going to see different schools having big weekends like this weekend. I think LSU's got a monster weekend. But here's the thing with Georgia: they're on spring break. The Georgia staff's on spring break. This is it for those guys. I mean, I literally looked at the calendar. This is like the last. If you're an assistant coach at Georgia, if you're a Glenn Schumann, if you're a Stacy Searles, if you're a Todd Hartley, this is it until the last week of June. Like, you're not off again. This is it. And I watched social media with players. Saw some in Dominican Republic last night. Saw some in Jamaica last night. Saw some in Cabo. Saw some coaches with some coastlines wherever they were, and good for them, man. So you're not going to see anything this weekend either. But after this weekend, you're going to get into that March 15th weekend, and Georgia's expecting a big weekend. And obviously, it's going to be headlined by another visit from quarterback Julian Juju Lewis out of Carrollton. This will be an unofficial visit. I think Juju will be at Alabama this weekend. He goes to Georgia again on the 15th, and then he's at Auburn, Colorado, and Southern Cal. He hasn't announced anything yet as far as he's verbally committed to Southern Cal, USC, but he hasn't announced anything as far as official visits in June. But I'll be surprised if he doesn't take officials. I think this thing gets into there. So we're going to have an updated list. I expect March 15th to be a strong weekend. That'd be Georgia's basically opening weekend after having the 1st and the 8th off because of spring break. But that's it. I mean, that's it. After that, Georgia, it'll be foregone until at the end of June, dead period.
And we all know how things are shaping up for Georgia at the quarterback position with Matt Zollers, now the number 17th ranked player in the On 300, the number 3 quarterback, Juju Lewis, both of those guys being major targets. And we've told you right here on this very show, we don't think that Georgia gets beyond those two. I
don't think they do. I'll tell you right now, if you have not watched Matt Zeller's highlight film, go watch that thing. Yeah. I mean, I remember, so Charles Power cuts it up and sends it to me about 2 weeks ago, and I didn't know who it was. And he goes, "Watch this." And I was like, "Holy, who is this guy?" And he goes, "That's Matt Zellers." And he was like, he checks all the boxes. And listen, what I like about Charles Power is he perfect? He's not. But he doesn't listen to anybody else. He listens to his evaluations. He listens to his experience in this business, his experience in dealing with colleges through a scouting services that he's worked with. And it's not a science, man. The NFL misses too. But Charles is a big believer in him, man. His tape and his size, he can roll. You're right, DGD podcast. He can roll too. So, and obviously Juju Lewis speaks for himself. He's got two years of tape at Carrollton. We don't have to gush over him because he's got all the highlights in the world. So I just want people to understand this is not just a one and done. It's either Juju or not. I mean, this other player here is a real deal. They're recruiting others. Don't get me wrong, but my opinion, I don't think they get past one of these two ending up in this class.
Yeah, no doubt. And this is a guy that's 85 overall in the composite. I think the rest of the industry is going to kind of catch up on him. And I agree, man. I've watched the film. I think he's a fantastic player. He is a big time talent. Georgia's been all over him for a little while now, and he's a guy that's apparently going to decide here in the fairly near future as well. So we'll definitely be keeping an eye on that, an eye on these.
I got a tease for you.
Yeah,
I got a kid I'm going to see next week. I had to call Charles Power last week to even introduce him to Charles for a profile. Georgia is all over this kid in the 25 class. They are all over this kid. And I haven't seen him in person. Called a coach yesterday, set up a visit. I'm going to travel to go see this young man. And I'm excited about it. When I showed Charles the highlights and we looked at his stats, I mean, Charles Power was like, holy, you know what? So 2025, there's one more. He's not a quarterback, so he's not a quarterback. But this kid, when I was digging around, and he's like, yeah, dude, Georgia is all over this kid. Like, they have been up here twice to see him, and they're all over him. And as far as I know, he is a major target from Georgia. I don't even think he has a profile on any other service except for On3 now. So You won't have to wait long. I'm gonna go see him next week in person, and I'll have some stuff for you on DawgsHQ.
All right. Only listen, the Georgia shows where you get teases like that. It's the only place. Going over to DawgsHQ, sign up, join us. $1 1 month. You'll love it. That'll get you through the bulk of spring practice and everything like that. We'll be breaking news over there. We'll be giving you a lot of scoop. It'll be a lot of fun. But for this episode of the Georgia Show, I'm Jake. He's Rusty, and y'all have a great week.